Woohoo! I've got a great video for you guys, and it has been highly requested by people that want to buy all the same stuff and kind of build and follow along with me in my build. So today's video is going to be showing you all the very cool and new parts that I'm going to be putting inside of my big budget virtual pinball cabinet as of October 2024. So let's go. I'm excited to show you all this cool stuff. All right, I'm gonna try my best to keep this as short as possible for you guys, but I do have a lot of info and there's a lot of parts that I wanna show you today. So what that means is I'm not gonna go into massive amounts of detail on these parts or show you how to install them. These are gonna be future videos for the series as I build the cabinet. Now, I will be putting all the links to all the parts that I talk about in the video description below, so you can go ahead and find them and order them, and that way you can build along with me with your cabinet. How cool is that? Now, these parts are in no specific order, so we're just going to start with the first sponsor here, and that is all my parts from L'Atelier d'Arnaud. So let's check that stuff out. Okay, something kind of cool I thought I'd share with you before I start with Arnaud's parts. Arnaud's has graciously offered all of his parts practically for the build here, which is awesome. Thank you very much, Arnaud's. And every single thing that he has practically fits inside this little box. So those of you kind of concerned about shipping from France, wasn't really that much. So let's check out all this cool stuff. First up here is the big brain of our virtual pinball cabinet, or the heart. This is the Dude's Cab, which is a fairly new board from Arnaud's, and it has a lot of cool features. One of the coolest things is that it's not relying on a KL25Z board like just about everyone else. And as everyone knows, during the pandemic and even after, there has been some shortages of those boards and they're hard to find, and you're paying a premium for them sometimes. So this one here is actually based off of an overclocked Raspberry Pi microcontroller, which everybody knows is a very reliable and reputable microcontroller brand. Now, one of the other really big things that I'm excited about this is the fact that not only does this have 32 inputs, 5 of them are ultra low latency. And if you know anything about virtual pinball, latency is important, because by the time you hit your flipper button and the microcontroller figures out that you want that flipper button to hit and it tells VPX, if there's too much latency or a lag there, when you hit that button, it's too late. That ball is already off the tip of your flipper. So very, very important. And to give you an idea, a standard KL25Z is about 10 milliseconds of latency. A zero delay encoder would be up to 14 milliseconds. This thing is a fraction of a millisecond. It's 0.73. So I'm excited to try this out, and maybe later we can actually do a video showcasing that. Okay, other cool things is there is 2 methods of being able to hook up your wires. You've got the old school kind of ones where you can take off these connectors and your wires would go into there. Or we've got these JST connections that do the same exact connections, just in a smaller, tighter, cleaner package. Okay, and then you can have up to 128 DOF outputs with the expansion system boards that I'm going to talk about in a bit. It's got the ability to add night mode so that you can mute your noisy toys. This one's powered by a USB-C cable. And another thing I really like about this board is that there isn't just ports around the side here to figure out which letters and numbers you have to put the wires to. It's all very clearly labeled what exactly has to go where, what boards go to where, what connections are for what. So this should make it very easy to put together. And I'm also very excited to try out his configuration software. I've looked at it online, looks very easy and simple too. Lots of other stuff on here, but the main things are that this has everything a KL25Z board can do. All right, next up is the Walter Driver board. Now, this is an expansion board that hooks up directly to your Dude's Cab. And what this board allows you to do is have up to 16 pulse width modulated ports for things like lights or anything like that. Now, it is not limited by 16. You can actually get more Walter Driver boards and just keep adding them on and on. And the red dip switches here allow you to be able to tell your Dude's Cab configuration program which Walter Driver is controlling which outputs. Now, this is not meant to necessarily drive all of your mechanical high-powered toys. This is designed to be used with another board, which we're going to talk about in a second. But this one will give you 16 pulse width modulated outputs. Okay, next up are these MOS 8 boards. Now, these are to be used in conjunction with the Walter Driver boards. And what each one of these boards does is allows you to control up to 8 mechanical toys that run from 0 to 48 volts And each one can't be more than 8 amps, and you can't have more than 20 amps running total. And these are protection devices. This board is going to electrically use an optocoupler to prevent any flyback voltage from coming from your mechanical toys, going back to your dude's cab and frying that up. So these are protection devices. And under each one of these is a little 5x20 format fuse holder. So you can put your fuses in there, and if it ever gets too much power in there, it'll pop in there as well. So these are really nice to have to protect your system from your mechanical toys. Okay, next up is this POTAR potentiometer plunger board. And this is going to hook up directly to our dude's cab. And what it basically is a potentiometer, a linear potentiometer that we're going to hook up directly to our plunger. And so when our plunger moves, this is going to know exactly where it is. So I'm kind of excited to see what this is going to look like in VPX. This also has the capability to add a button or two so that you've got a launch ball button built into this. Okay, next up is the La Nettoise. Man, I'm probably just butchering that, sorry or no. These little guys are kind of like little cleaner boards. Essentially, it's a capacitor in here and some diodes. And what's going to happen is you're going to put one of these close to any kind of mechanical toys that have motors. So think like beacons or shaker motors, gear motors. And what it's going to do is it's also going to prevent any flyback voltage going back to boards. And the capacitor is also going to smooth and clean and filter out any kind of interference that may be created from those parts. So, very cool. La Nettoise. La Nettoise. Man, sorry. All right, next up are these little guys. These are called button boards, and these are simply a board that allows you to take up to 6 different buttons that are kind of on one side of the cabinet and in the same spot, like think right MagnaSave, right flipper, plunger, launch ball button. You can put all of that and have shorter run of wires to those spots. And then from there, you can use a ribbon cable with a JST connector to go to the dude's cab. So this is a way of simplifying and cleaning up your wiring so that it looks even better inside your cabinet. Next up is the Volt board. Now this is designed to work hand in hand with a teen cab or a PinMOS. And what this is going to do is provide a bit of filtered power. So any power going through here is going to be cleaned up, as well as it's got some protection in here for the circuits with some 10 amp fuses that go underneath these spots. So 4 channels worth of 40 amps total. So this is going to be protecting our circuits and wires for our lighting. So our matrix and for our ALED strips that we're putting on the cabinet. Next up is this brain board. Now the idea behind this board is if you have a coin door that is blank on the inside and you don't have your service buttons, this can take care of that. So it's got the 4 buttons, the exit, minus, plus, and OK, so that you can do those internal ROM volume changes and things like that. This one also has a door button, so if you don't have an actual switch on the coin door that tells VPX that you have opened the door and you want access to the coin door switches, you can push that. It's got a night mode button here, so we can manually turn on and off our mechanical toys so we're not making a lot of noise at night. There's a calibration button and another couple buttons there that I think if you don't want to use, you can actually put them in VPX as something else. So, very cool. Well, this is the teen cab board. So this is a little microcontroller that we're going to be able to flash a program on here so that we can control all of our lighting, such as our matrix and our ALED strips. Now, this one's blank on the top, but that is where you would order yourself a 3.1 or 4.0 Teensy that would go in there. So this is kind of acting like our old Opto board that allowed us to split off all the different channels on our budget build. Now, one cool thing that's on here is a test button, and when you push that, it should be putting power to all of your lights so that you can see if there's any issues with your matrix or your ALED strips themselves. All right, and these little boards are called DTG strobes. These are little mini strobe lights, and apparently from the description, they are crazy bright. I haven't had a chance to try them yet. So we're gonna have to find some kind of cool place on the cabinet to really blind ourselves when these go off, or maybe we can fit them somewhere like next to the matrix, but interested to see these in action. All right, next up are these MX buttons, which also can be bought in the same format, but RGB. So if you're using a different kind of microcontroller for the lighting, such as an LED whiz, then you might want to look at getting those instead. Now, the MX ones should allow you to use basically your Teensy or PinMOS to basically say that these LEDs are going to do that for the flipper or your MagnaSave buttons. Now, the format here I asked Arno to make this as simple as possible. He's got ones you can get with nothing on them, or the connector soldered on already for you. And I kind of like the idea of being able to just quickly undo things in case you got to fix stuff or whatever. Now these, I asked him for 5 because I'm going to have 2 for flipper, 2 for MagnaSaves, and then the other one is for a fire button. We're going to do a fire button on this cabinet. So I'm excited to try these out and figure out how this all works. Okay, and to go with those MX boards, I've got some clear flipper and MagnaSave buttons. Sweet. As well as 5 of the leaf switches to go into our 3D printed holder. Okay, and then lastly, I've got all of the ribbon cables and the JST connections and the USB cable for the Dude's Cab. And I even got a keychain with Arnaud's signature icon on there. And while you're on Arnaud's websites checking out his parts, also take a look at the 3D printed brackets and stuff like that for holding all that stuff. And you can purchase that, or he has graciously offered them STL files for free so that you can 3D print your own little brackets for all that stuff. And if you don't know how to do that, I will post a link above to a video that I showed you guys how to do some 3D printing so you can make these custom themed colors to match your cabinet. Now, keep in mind, some of this is just cosmetic and some of this is really required, right? If you bought a Potar from him, you're gonna have to print off or buy the plunger kit so that you can get it to work in your cabinet. And once again, Arnaud's, thank you very much for sponsoring all of our parts. I'm super excited to get this into the cabinet and see how it's gonna look and work. Thanks again. All right, the next bunch of parts is from Philip, who has graciously sponsored all of the parts from Cleveland Software Designs so that we can have all of our mechanical toys and our lighting and stuff like that. So I have heard nothing but good things from both Arnaud's and Cleveland Software Designs over the last 2 years, and seeing all these cool boards and cool gadgets going into people's builds. So I'm very excited to be working with both of these guys. So let's dig into these and see what I got from there. All right, next up is the shaker motor. This thing is professional looking, man. Big, huge eccentric weight, big motor, all mounted to a nice frame and kind of like built-in guard. This thing is gonna shake the crap out of my cabinet. Way bigger and better than what I got in my budget build. So it'll be awesome to see this thing in action. Okay, this little board here is a voltage regulator so that we can actually turn this little pot down and we can turn down the amount of power going to our shaker motor. So I think with that shaker motor, we're gonna need this. And we could do it in pulse width modulation as well, but this makes it really quick and easy to be able to do it manually. And because of that big, heavy, I think it's an 8-ounce offset weight, this isn't going to be a shake the cabinet to death setting. This is going to be get that eccentric weight moving so you can feel it rather than shake and vibrate the cabinet. So looking forward to using that. Next up is a knocker, and I did not put one of these in my budget build, so I'm excited to put this one into the big budget build. And instead of using the kind of audio software generated knocker, this thing should be nice and loud and make you jump and flinch every time you match on your score. Now to go with this, because realistically 12 volt would make this work, but we need this to really slam real quick. So we could use 24 or even 48 volt. So to go with that, this little board, so this is the knocker step up voltage regulator. So the cool thing about this is you don't need another power supply. You can just supply 12 volts to this, and this board's going to ramp it up to 24 volts so that that knocker really makes it a loud bang for you. And another thing with this knocker 24 volt step up board is it is safety rated so that it will prevent it from staying on accidentally. And it actually has a life extender on here so that any kind of solenoids that you apply to this, it won't burn them out if they decide to get stuck on, or if you're holding on like a flipper kind of thing. Okay, now the next bunch of parts here that are going to be in order here are part of a complete addressable LED plug and play kit. So everything you need to be able to get your matrix and your side strip LED lights going. So this is the first part. This is the switchable power supply, the Meanwell style. This one is 5 volts at 16 amps. And how cool is that? It is literally all wired and everything ready for you with these JST connectors. Man, talk about plug and play. All right, next up is the addressable board. This is the brains of the lighting, so what's going to control it. And in this case, this kit uses a Wemos, which is kind of cool. I haven't used this one yet, so I'll be able to show you guys how to do that. And this board can control 10 different outputs. And it's got the nice little plug and play kind of connectors for your wires, so it'll make a nice clean install. It's even got a fuse for in case things pop, and your voltage positive, negative 5 volts to the board. Now, for those of you that are following along with this build and the parts that we just talked about, I did show you the Arnaud sent me a teen cab, and I've bought a Teensy 4.0 on the side. I'm going to be doing the Wemos because I want to be able to keep this kit all together and get that to work. But I will show you in a future video, probably when I upgrade the Matrix to an HD on my budget build, I will use the teen cab and the Teensy there. Okay, next part in the plug and play kit is the actual Matrix panels itself. Now in the kit, you get 3 panels, which are actually 2 square 3 1/8 by 3 1/8 panels. So there's actually 6 of these here, and they're already pre-wired. Everything is ready to go. You just literally got to plug this into the addressable board. Man, how simple is all this? And he's got a really cool mounting system on the back here. You can undo the panel from this backing board, mount the board, and then you can actually mount the LED panels back to it. So you can make a nice seamless matrix along your piece there. Now, I've also got an additional single square panel that I'm going to add because I was able to fit it in there, and so that way I can kind of fill the back with matrix lights. Now, one of the things I'm really kind of excited about to do once this is all set up is I've gone to the HD, so the more condensed, more LED panels. So we'll be able to play with all the new HD patterns and things that are going on, and I'm excited to show you guys that. Okay, and then the last parts for this plug and play kit are the actual side strips themselves. So you end up with a left and a right 144 LED per meter strip, so that you've got the LED lights for your left and right play field. And once again, it's all plug and play, ready to go here. Man, what a great kit. I'm excited to put this all together. Okay, next up is this 12 volt RGB light bar. We've got 5 different RGB outputs. It's all mounted in a very nice, slick looking, professional looking anodized case here. And then on the back here, we've got a simple hookup with our ribbon cable. And then it connects to one of these 15 output RGB breakout boards. And so that you can hook this up to any of your DOF controlled stuff to get this to work. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get this as straight up like that on the top as a light bar, like a topper light bar, or if it's going to go somewhere by the matrix on top of the play field. I might also be doing something where I incorporate this into a topper. You're just going to have to wait and see what I do with it. All right, so the next bunch of parts is part of a brand new SSF kit that is so brand new, I'm literally the first person to probably be talking about it, and it's not even up on their website yet. This is the start of this system, and this is a amp that now takes over the job of 3 amps in the past. So usually you had an amp for your front exciters, an amp for your rear exciters, and possibly another amp for your back box ROM speakers and sub. So this is going to take care of all of that. Very slick setup, all compact into one. So this time we've got a 24 volts, so lots of power coming to this. We've got nice plug and play connections for our bass shakers and our speakers. All of the power and ground connections for all of our exciters and subs. Our RCA or auxiliary cable jacks. What do we got? Master volume on-off mode switch for 7.2 or 2.1, and then all our different adjusting knobs to make sure everything is exactly how we want. Very slick. All right, some important specs for this amplifier so you know exactly what speakers and subs to buy. You are able to have 50 watts RMS for each of the speakers and 100 watts RMS for your sub. So I would recommend that you try to buy subs and speakers that are in that range or as close to that as possible. That way you are not getting any clipping. So to power that, we've got kind of like a laptop style AC/DC adapter here for the 24 volts. Okay, and then we've got one of these external sound cards. So this is a 7.1 surround sound. So if you don't have a 7.1 already set up on your motherboard, this will come in handy. Okay, the kit comes with a bass shaker. This looks exactly like the one that I put in my cabinet. So this is a Dayton Audio, should be a BS1 if I'm not mistaken. And that'll be bolted into the bottom of the cabinet and give us some nice vibrations. Next up in the kit are 4 of these exciters from Dayton Audio. These are a little different than what I used in my budget build. These are EX32 EP2-4, so 4 ohm, 40 watts. And they do have a little sticky tab here so you can stick it to the inside of your cabinet. And before you do that, this actually spins off. So you can take the sticker off and screw this solidly to the cabinet and then just spin this exciter back on before you do the wiring. Even all the power cables and the aux cords, everything is here ready to plug and play. How sweet is that? Okay, and then the piece de resistance is we are going to add solenoids to this build. And I am excited to see how these solenoids actually sound compared to SSF, because I have actually never used these before. So I'm gonna be able to figure it out and show you guys exactly how to use these. And then we'll be able to compare, you know, both this and SSF, just solenoids. We're gonna be able to compare it all. So these are yet something else brand new that Philip at Cleveland Software Designs has been working on in the background. So he wanted to improve his automotive solenoids for these kits and design kind of an open frame solenoid. Now, he worked with the manufacturer to make it so that these things can last over 10 million cycles without having any fails. So very cool. Now, this comes in a very nice kit. It's already pre-mounted on a board, which if you wanted to, you could literally just screw it to the inside of your cab where you want it, and you're good to go. Or you're free to take this off and place it exactly where you want it and make it perfect for your build. Now, the other thing that is in here that's really cool and that I've been talking about and hearing about for a while now is Philip's solenoid extenders. So the idea behind a solenoid is that every time you energize it, it hits it over and makes a loud noise. And if you hold the flipper button and it engages it and it keeps putting electricity to the solenoid, that is a really great way of burning these things out. And we're always kind of pausing the balls on the flippers. So to prevent that solenoid from being burnt out, these solenoid extenders, as soon as you are holding it and after the initial hit, it reduces the voltage enough that it can still hold the solenoid out so it doesn't make any noise, but it's reduced it so it's not actually burning out your solenoids. So very cool, very slick looking setup here. And then to power this, it also comes with a 12 volt, 10 amp Meanwell style switchable power supply so that you can power up the solenoids, and we could probably also use our shaker motor and gear motor and things like that. And comes with a twisted wire loom, so you got less radio interference and plug and play. All right, and then Philip also gave me a bunch of bonus stuff here, either just to check out or compare with the other stuff or to kind of show people in the future how to put things together. So thank you for that. This stuff will not be going in the big budget build. However, man, I've got enough here for maybe a little kind of VR mini pin sim or something like that. So maybe in the future you'll be seeing this stuff. All right, once again, Philip, thank you very much for graciously sponsoring all your parts from Cleveland Software Designs, and I am excited to get them in the cabinet and see how they work. So the next batch of parts has been graciously sponsored by Marco Specialties. These guys have been in the business a long time and are very strong supporters of pinball. And when they heard what I was doing with virtual pinball, they were excited to help me that way and give me some of these parts to show you guys how to put them in. So I'm excited about that, and I'm really excited to be working with Marco Specialties for the future too. Hopefully I can get some pinball restoration kind of content out for you guys. And man, I think it would be really cool to design and theme and make my own custom pinball machine too from scratch. That'd be awesome. All right, let's check out all these parts they gave us. First up is a Williams style coin door, and I'm a really big fan of, if you're trying to make a pinball cabinet, use real pinball parts, and this thing is going to make this thing look way better than just having kind of buttons on the front and that's it. So got all the coin return buttons. We'll turn those into probably coin insert buttons. Lockable, and on the back we got everything on this one. So you can get them blank on the back, but in this case I wanted the full meal deal here. So if I want to put coin mechs in, that's all ready to go. It's got the service buttons over here so that we can do the ROM adjustments and things like that. It's a very nice, slick looking part that's going to look amazing on the front of the cabinet. Next bunch of parts here is for us to be able to put Williams styled legs on. So we've got 4 chrome legs here, beautiful finish on them. We've got some black leg protectors so we can protect our cabinets. And I got black to match my creature, but you can get this in any color you want. We've got the brackets for the inside that the actual leg bolts go through and bolt into. And then we've got all the little self-tapping screws that we're putting these back into the inside of the wooden cabinet to hold these in place so that you can undo the bolts and take legs off without this moving its position. You can put the legs on easier later. And lastly, we got some leg levelers. Sweet, these legs are gonna be going on pretty quick here. All right, next parts are our lockdown bar and our receiver. Now, if you guys followed my budget build, you know that I didn't want to spend almost $450 to get these 2 parts shipped up to Canada, paid for with duty, do the conversion to Canadian. It was a crazy amount of money So I did it a different way, but we've got a big budget build this time, so we've bought the parts straight from Marco. So we have an official wide body lockdown bar, and this is the newer version that they are now epoxying these in, and so there isn't any kind of spot welding marks on here. Nice. Yeah, that looks great, and it already comes with a beer foam seal, so we don't have to get that as well. And then we've got a Williams lockdown bar receiver here so that we can get this thing clamped down properly. Awesome, sweet. Now when you're looking at getting your lockdown bar and receiver, something to think about is, do you want to have a fire button? In this case, if you are going to get a fire button, I would maybe make things a little easier, because the fire button and the switch and all the lighting needs to go somewhere here. So this kind of makes it really difficult to do that. So if you're going to do that, and I have bought an extra second receiver here, this is actually a Jersey Jack Pinball lockdown bar receiver that will fit, except notice that there is a big cutout here and there's a couple bolts here so that we can have a little bracket for all of our RGB and switch and stuff for our fire button. So if you know you're going to do a fire button, you may want to look at getting one of these. However, when I do the video where I do the lockdown bar button install, I will talk about how to put the hole in the lockdown bar receiver, as well as any modifications, so you can maybe get both of these styles to work. Next bunch of parts is our playfield glass side plastic trim. There's two of these for left and right, and there's the back one that sits at the back of the cabinet. And it's going to be really nice to be able to just use a wide body version instead of trying to make one from scratch like I did on my budget build for my ultra wide body. And then I've got the two stainless side playfield trims that are going to cover up these pieces and the related hardware that we need for that. And of course we have our wide body playfield glass straight from Marco, and because it is a mass-produced wide body piece of glass, it is a lot cheaper than getting a piece of glass cut locally to you. Okay, and then all of these parts are featured in my How to Prep Your Cabinet for Vinyl video already. So these are the left and right hinges for the back box. There is the different bushing and bushing bolts for those to attach to the cabinet. This is the latch that it allows the back box to hook onto the main cabinet. The other part, the little hook part, is still on the cabinet. These are the long carriage bolts. These are the nylock nuts for the 832 bolts that attach your stainless side trim to the sides of the cabinet. And then all of these here is the wing bolts to attach the back box to the cabinet, the carriage bolts, and 1/4 inch flange nuts to put the hinge to the back box, as well as a backing plate to reinforce that area. And this is the 1 inch wide double-sided adhesive tape for attaching your stainless playfield side trim to the cabinet. Next up is a kit for putting a real tilt bob mechanism into your virtual pinball cabinet. So this is responsible for detecting any tilts. Now I'm really excited because I did not do this in my budget build, and I have a feeling this is going to be really awesome for those of you that are struggling with your SSF system vibrating your cabinet too much and giving you false tilts, just like an original real cabinet, and those little vibrations aren't going to set this thing off. So excited to show you how to do this. Probably make a separate video on this. So everything here is going to be all the parts needed to assemble a real pinball plunger that we can hook up to our Potar from Arnaud. So we've got our plunger base, the shooter rod, shooter spring, the other little spring for rebounds, and a backing plate. So all of this will come together and give us a real plunger. All right, the last couple parts from Marco Specialties is some real authentic William pinball buttons to finish off that look from the front of the cab. So we've got a real launch button for those games that just didn't have a plunger. Smack that, get the game going. We've got a real orange extra ball button, and we've got a start button as well. So everything's very clear what that does on our cabinet. All right, so once again, thank you very much, Marco Specialties, for all of these parts. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to doing some great stuff with you guys in the future. Whew, that was a lot of parts. Thank you very much, you guys. Now, the rest of the parts in the video is extra things that I had to purchase to be able to finish this project off. So let's go through those. Now, starting with the back glass, I have this Samsung S3. It's a 32-inch 1080p monitor, so that's very important. It's usually easier to get computer monitors to turn on with the PC when you apply the power back on, which I have already tested, and that works for this. All I needed was a 60 hertz, but what was coming up for sales and stuff, this one's a 75 hertz. It's not going to make any difference for what we're doing. What else? It's got a very thin bezel on it, so if applications that you need to have it very tight fitting, that's a good thing. Otherwise, it's an IPS screen, so very, very wide angles. So I got this on sale, very good deal, 175 bucks Canadian, so pretty sweet deal. Also, one other important thing is it has a VESA mount. It's 100 by 100 millimeters, so that we can get this to work inside of our pinballcabinet.com back box. Okay, next up is the display for our full DMD. Now, what this basically is a laptop LCD computer screen replacement. And this is a 15.6 inch. It is a 1080p display, and it's also IPS, so that you got the nice wide angles and nice good colors. Now, you will need a little bit more than just the screen here. But before I show you that, the exact model number you need will be down in the video description below. And I will be talking about this more in depth when I do the actual monitor install. But in order to get these screens to work, you have to actually look at the serial number on the back and the model number, and then you need to do a search online to find a controller that will work with that. So to be able to hook up to this screen and have an HDMI output, there is this controller driver board and ribbon cable to get it to connect to the actual display. Now, once again, you do have to match this controller driver board to the actual monitor, so you're going to have to make sure that these match. Now, I have tested this already. These do work, so if you're wanting to find something that's going to work for you, for sure, I can look in the video description link down below. Okay, and then to power these things, you are also going to need an AC/DC adapter for 12 volts and whatever amperage or voltage that you are using to supply for your screens. And then the last thing is, this is a screen that's, once again, supposed to go into a laptop, so there isn't any kind of brackets or anything on this model. So you can try to look for one of these display screens that do have built-in kind of brackets, especially in the right locations to go into our pinballcabinet.com setup. However, mine, even though I ordered it with it, it didn't come with them for whatever reason. So a little quick shop over at AliExpress, I was able to find these screen brackets that slide over like that. And then you just put the little screws in to be able to put this in properly. All right, and then this is the piece de resistance, the most important part of this whole build practically, which is the playfield monitor. Now, we spent some big money and we got ourselves an LG OLED 120 hertz 42 inch C3. Now, I went with a C3 because there actually was a sale, so I ended up getting this a bit cheaper. And the C4, really the only difference is instead of 120 hertz, you're getting 144 hertz. I don't think you're going to see that extra 24 hertz realistically, so I can wait and not have to pay $500-600 bucks for that. Besides, the next thing out, C5 will probably be even more. So maybe when I get the next monitor for maybe upgrading my budget build, maybe there'll be something even better. Now, I've been looking and listening to people for the last 2 years just rave about their LG OLEDs. The only thing that I have heard too that's kind of a downside is the fact that sometimes they don't turn on, but I'm going to figure out a switch and figure out something for you guys so that you can just have that turn on automatically. And the other thing is the risk of having burn-in. So we're going to figure out a way to make sure that that doesn't happen as well. And I'll let you guys all know when we do the video for this. So pretty excited. OLED, baby! Next up is a cable management system. Now, I was a real fan of the StarGeek stuff that I used that was white inside the totem cab. So I went with the same system, this time black. You can see it's going to have a self-adhesive sticker to stick this to the sides of the bottom. A nice lid that comes off here so you can put all the wires in. Make this system look really slick on the inside. It even comes with different kind of corners and things like that to make it ultra slick looking. All right, all of these parts here are to finish off the lighting for the cabinet. So we need some speaker lights. This time we're going to go with these LED rings, which you can cut off and change whatever you want. So I got left and right for those. And I was really happy with my undercab lighting and my behind the back box. The only thing I would have liked is a little bit more light. So I've gone with a bunch more of the 144 LEDs per meter strips. Whether I use all four, who knows, but I want it to be a little brighter, even more pop. This is going to be to finish the inside of the cab, so much like we did on the budget build. So I put some inside lighting for it so that we can see what we're doing when we've got the monitor up. And then technically this is cooling, but these are ARGB ones that we can actually change the colors coming off of the cooling fans. So I'm kind of including it with our lighting here. So these are for cooling the inside of the cabinet. And then I've got some of these screen guards that we're going to use to prevent people's fingers and stuff from going in. And to go with that are these Muzata diffused LED strip holders that I used before. I really liked them. These are some nice thin anodized aluminum strips that come with a diffuser that is tinted so that you can barely see the LEDs unless they're turning on. So very slick setup. I'm going to be using that again. I've got one of these addressable RGB pulse width modulated fan hubs. Essentially it's a splitter, but it's going to allow us to add upwards of another 5 fans, even though we only need 3 in addition to our PC. Next up is a master slave power strip, so that you can decide one of these devices that when it turns on, that's your master, it will automatically turn on any of the other ones that switch on with that. So really cool to be able to just turn on a computer and have the whole cabinet start up. So very excited about that. I had trouble finding my old one, so this is the new one here. It's made by Insignia. Links for everything in this video are going to be below. Okay, I really liked the ability to just stick a USB stick under the front of my cabinet and be able to add tables or do whatever I need to. So I'm going to put one of these USB pass-through sockets with a USB cord so I can hook that up to the computer and remotely get a USB stick in from the front. Okay, I really liked my gear motor in my budget build, so once again I've got another Toyota brand. I don't even know what model it is, but the links are below. This is a Toyota 2-stage, so low speed, high speed windshield wiper motor. And I went with this because it has kind of the same mounting process. Take the rubber bumpers off, add a couple washers in there, cut the main shaft off, and then this will clear the cabinet. And then you have your choice of low or high speed, whatever you think sounds more appropriate for a gear motor. Okay, to go with that amp from Cleveland Software Designs, these are my back box speakers. So when I used to do decibel drag, I used to use a lot of Rockford Fosgate stuff, and I really like their stuff. A little bit pricey, but should be sounding awesome. So for the back box speakers themselves, I've got 2 5¼ inch speakers here. They are 40 watt max, and they are 4 ohm, and they are R1525s. And then to go with that, I have a 6½ inch sub, or a mid-range sub, and it is 100 watts RMS, and it is a PPS4-6. Now, these things are going to sound awesome in this cabinet, and I can't wait to hear them. Now, the speakers actually have some cool little grills that come with them, very slick designs, which will look good. However, I may opt to change out the back box ones with some cool, very themed, appropriate speaker covers. You'll just have to wait and see what I do. Next up are these ground loop insulators. Now, these are very cheap insurance to ensure that any kind of interference from neighboring wires or any kind of feedback is not getting put into the amps and being amplified and you hearing it in the music. Like I said, very, very cheap insurance, and I've got 3 of them for each of the inputs into the amp. Next up is a step-down voltage regulator. We need this to take our 12 volt from our power supply and scale it down to 6.3 so that we can operate the lamps or the light bulbs in some of the front panel buttons and the coin door. Next up is a little micro momentary on switch, and I just ordered a whole pack because I'll use them for other projects in the future. But this is going to be the plunger button so that when you push the plunger in, you're going to end up hitting this, and then you can have another button input on the front of your cab to do whatever you want. For me, I'm going to use it for exiting popper. And if you end up buying the pre-printed parts for the plunger from Arnaud's, he actually includes this switch for you. All right, and then I bought another one of these pulse width modulated fan boards. Now, I used this in my previous build, and I'm going to try to get away with it with the computer for this build for something different to do. But worst case, I'm going to go back to this. What this board allows you to do is monitor the temperature inside the cab, and if it ever reaches above a threshold that you decide, it will actually increase the speed of the fans to bring the temperature down. And then as soon as it's back down to cooler temperatures, it will slow the fans down. And so in essence, this will make your fans quiet on the cabinet unless there is an issue and it needs to have it cranked up. Now, not only will it do that, it actually has an alarm on here as well. So if any of the fans you have hooked up to this stop working, or if something interferes like a finger or a wire or something gets in there and stops a fan, you won't know, but this thing will actually tell you, and it'll give you an alarm and allow you to fix the problem. So, sweet little board. If I don't end up using it, I'll use it for another project later. All right, one of the things I wanted to try for this build was putting in an air fan. So this is an inline blower fan for a bilge for a boat. It is a 12-volt power. It is 130 cubic feet per minute, and it's got 3-inch inlets and outlets. So we should be able to blast some air interfaces when we're playing some cool games and hitting things in like Whirlwind and stuff like that. Okay, I've just got this hooked up to a 12-volt power supply. Let's see how this works. Yeah, that'll wake you up. Okay, and lastly, all of these parts here are either stuff I didn't have to buy again because when I first bought them, it came with so much extra parts that I still have enough to do this build, or it's parts that I've had to order again, but they are exactly the same parts. So all of the links to these parts will be in the video description below, and if I missed one or if there's something else in this build that didn't get in this video, a lot of that stuff is going to be in my budget build parts video. So I'll put a link above to that for you, and that way you can find the parts you need for your build. So real quick here, I've got color matched 22 gauge wire for any kind of signals that we're going to be using. If there's any kind of power stuff, I've got some 18 gauge black and red silicone wrapped wire for that. I've got a bunch of power distribution blocks here that come in different amounts, so we'll be able to use those. Okay, we've got one of these ICE 320 switches with a fuse in here so that we can put this to the back of the cabinet, and if anything is too powerful, it'll blow the fuse rather than frying things inside. That was part of a 2-pack, so this is the second one. Got a bunch of the 5x20 glass fuses so that we can put them inside of our Arnaud's boards. I've got the coin door switch so that the machine will know when we open the coin door, and it needs a bracket, and these are from pinballlife.com. You can get those from there. Okay, and then I've got a set of arcade buttons that I used on my arcade cabinet as well as my last pinball cabinet. And I actually take the guts out of it and just use the chrome bezel because I'm a real fan of that chrome bezel on a cabinet. It looks really slick. So we might steal some of the bezels off of these. Okay, we've got 2 more of these really strong bar magnets that we used for holding up our matrix in the last build. So we'll probably use these for this build. Okay, and there is some various 3-pin connectors. This was a kit of a bunch of them here. These just have the male and female ends so that you can solder these in and make any connections or extend things if you need to. Okay, I got another one of those gyrocopter anti-vibration build plates. It worked really, really good on the Toten build, so we'll see if we can put this underneath a dude's cab or figure out some way to isolate the vibration going to it. Okay, we've got a whole leftover bunch of these electronic board standoffs, so we can use a bunch of these for maybe the Cleveland software parts, or maybe if I find some time I can get some 3D modeling designed and print off some color matched bases for those as well. And we've got some 4-wire pulse width modulated extension cords so that our computer fans can get to their power and everything from the computer. Okay, I have a whole bunch of this grounding strapping or grounding wire that we used for grounding all of the external metal components on our build for our budget build. I don't think I need any more. I think I should have enough here, and if you need to buy some of this, the link is in my budget build video as well. All right, now depending on how many USB ports your computer has, and depending on how many devices you need to drive with USB, you may end up needing one of these USB hubs. Now, depending on the amount of stuff that you're driving off your USB connections, you may actually even need a power adapter as well. Now, in my budget build, I didn't actually need the adapter, so I ended up not using this. We'll have to see if we're going to need this for this build. All right, so that's all the parts that are going into my virtual pinball cabinet, minus a few odds and ends, things like HDMI cables and that kind of thing. Now, if there's anything I put into a video in the future that is not in this, I will add this to the video description later, and I will also probably put it in the video description for that video when I use it. Now, you may have noticed there's one big ticket item that is missing, and that is the PC. So that's going to get its own video. Stay tuned for that because it's going to be a good video. We need a very powerful PC to be able to do what we're wanting to do this time. Special thank you guys to Arnaud's and Philip from Cleveland Software Designs and Marco Specialties. You guys gave me some amazing products, and I can't wait to show everybody how to use them. So thank you very much. If you haven't already, why don't you join us on Instagram? That way you can see what's going on in the shop in between videos. And until next time, take it easy.